Testing chambers audio.
Good.
Audio sounds good to me, Mike.
Thank you. We're just trying to make sure.
Today's March 22nd, 2021 Board of County Commissioners meeting. The Board of Commissioners ask its members and citizens to conduct themselves in a respectful, courteous manner, both with the board and fellow citizens. At any time, should any member of the board or any citizen fail to observe this public charge, the chair will ask that offending person to leave the meeting until that individual regains personal control. Should decorum fail to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until such time that a genuine commitment to the public charge is observed. This evening, commissioners and guests, we have a very special presentation. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be shared today via video from the Girl Scouts of North Carolina Coastal Pines. We'll ask Monica to start the video.
Please join us in singing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us in saying the Girl Scout promise.
On my honor, I will try
to serve God
and my country, to help people at all times,
and to live by the Girl Scout law.
I will do my best to be honest and fair,
friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong,
be responsible for what I say and do,
and to respect myself and others,
respect authority,
use resources wisely,
make the world a better place,
and be a sister to every Girl Scout.
Wow, nice. Thank you. That was wonderful. Monica, thank you so much for setting that up for us. So, if there are any adjustments, commissioners, at this time, I do have one that I'd like to maybe put at the end of the agenda tonight and have a bit of conversation about the safety and wellness task force and selection of members. We could add that as the last item on the agenda. Are there any other agenda adjustments? Hearing none, we will move on to the announcements. And our clerk, Monica Toomer, will read the announcements.
Good evening, everyone. I will read the announcements for the Monday, March 22nd meeting. COVID-19 vaccine scheduling. The Durham County Department of Public Health's COVID-19 scheduling list saw a record number of signups, and Group 4 became eligible. Although the previous wait time on average was 2 to 4 business days, Public Health is expecting wait times to be slightly longer. They're asking that you please continue to schedule your appointments by visiting www.tinyurl.com/DCO scheduling list. Find COVID-19 testing. Have symptoms or been exposed to COVID-19 and need to be tested? Please visit dcopublichealth.org/COVID testing to find testing sites and many free resources in Durham. Women's History Month celebration. Join the YouTube live stream on Wednesday, March 31st, 2021 from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. This 6 all-female panel will discuss leadership lessons from the Bull City and how to empower women in your community. To register, please visit www.tinyurl.com/CRV as in Victor, MYEDU. Tax Administration Program Offerings. The Durham County Tax Department is offering a number of programs and features to county residents. They include the following: live chat communication, payment partnership agreements, property tax relief programs, online tax payment options, and advertisement of tax liens. Please call 919-560-0300 or visit www.dconc.gov/tax for additional information. Businesses receive support from the Durham Small Business Recovery Fund. Excuse me. The Recovery Fund, in collaboration with the City, County, and Duke University Health System, has provided over $1.6 million since July 2020 to help small, minority, and women-owned local businesses. The Recovery Fund continues to be held and administered by the Carolina Small Business Development Fund, CSBDF. For more information, please visit www.carolinasmallbusiness.org, or you can email durhamloan@carolinasmallbusiness.org. Veteran Services is here to help. Veterans, you served us, now let us serve you and your families. If you served in the military, or if you are a surviving spouse or dependent child of a veteran, Durham County Veteran Service Office is available to assist you in filing claims for VA benefits and services. Please call 919-560-8387 to speak with an accredited Veteran Service Officer today. You can move with Parkinson's, options for self-management. Join us on Thursday, March 25th from 1 till 2 p.m. for a live virtual program to hear from Parkinson's disease advocates and learn more about cost-free movement classes. Registration is required. Please contact Jenny Levine at 919-560-0268 or by email, that is JELEVINE@dconc.gov. Durham Production Career Expo. Looking to explore career opportunities and meet with hiring employers quickly and easily? Join the free virtual job fair on Wednesday, March 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can register by visiting portal.premiervirtual.com. This link is kind of long, so I will not read it all. It will be available on our county website. 2021 Durham Soil and Water Conservation District Bookmark Contest. Durham County students in grade K through 2nd are invited to participate in the annual spring bookmark contest from March 5th through April 22nd. This year's theme is recycling, and there will be prizes for both first and second place winners. Students can submit their entries by mail at Durham, SWCD, 201 East Main Street, 5th floor, Durham 27701. If you have questions, you can contact Lisa Morakchik at 919-560-0558. And lastly, College Heights Monthly History Series. Join us on Friday, March 26th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. as Beverly Barnes Evans and Melva George Regal share information about their community, College Heights. For more information, you can visit www.durhamcommunityengagement.org/our-community-stories. That concludes the March 22nd announcement.
Thank you so much, Monica. I have one other one that I'd like to read on behalf of the board. This is a statement on behalf of the Durham County Commissioners condemning the Tuesday's deadly mass shooting in Atlanta, Georgia area business. Like many others, I watched in horror as news reports of multiple deaths resulting from 3 separate incidents in and near Atlanta, Georgia, emerged Tuesday evening. I was especially heartbroken to learn that a gunman had viciously murdered 8 people, the majority of whom were Asian women. Indeed, our hearts and prayers go out to the families of the victims whose lives have been forever altered by the loss of their loved ones. We also pray for the recovery of the surviving victim and family. Tragically, the first incident took place in Cherokee County, Georgia, where 5 people were shot by the suspect and only 1 victim survived. About 1 hour later, the suspect traveled to Atlanta and again fired shots at victims in 2 other businesses located in the same proximity. 3 women were shot to death inside the first business, and a 4th woman was found dead in the other business across the street. If not for a positive ID of the gunman, shared by family members as a result of cameras located at the businesses and coordination of law enforcement officials in the 2 jurisdictions, this suspect most likely would have extended his killing spree to other locations, leaving more victims in his wake. While an official motive is not yet confirmed and the investigation continues, the fact is that 8 innocent people are dead, and most of them were Asian. Over the past year, we've seen a marked increase in various crimes against members of the Asian community in our major urban centers and in smaller towns. We are mindful of the current anti-Asian sentiments that continue to escalate, and we simply cannot thrive as a nation if we continue to perpetuate a spirit of hatred against any minority groups. Tragic, heartbreaking killings such as these continue to amplify the need for our communities to come together and show a spirit of unity. We must begin to have conversations that lead to a greater understanding of our differences and honestly work to develop respect for our worth, dignity, and values in order to thrive as a more perfect union. Together, we must do the work if we want to see change. If there are any other commissioners that would like to have a comment, have time for a comment. Not, we'll move on. The next is our minutes. We have minutes for our regular meeting, February 22nd and the 2021. The motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Burns and second by Commissioner Alum. We can have a verbal vote of approval by the call roll. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Alum. Aye. Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs.
Aye.
And Chair Howerton.
Aye.
Thank you.
Approved 5-0. The next item is We commissioners, we have 9 consent items on our agenda. If commissioners would like to pull in the additional any items to place at the end of the meeting at this time. Commissioner Jacobs.
I don't want to pull any item. I just wanted to commend our food security team and just the fantastic work that the Food Insight Group, the Durham Feast, Eat NC, and all the partners who've been working on food insecurity issues and their great report. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll have a manager go through these items.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair. Item 177 is approval of a budget amendment to reclassify budget in the amount of $201,048 from the environmental protection functional area to reclassifying budget to the human services functional area to the transportation. And this is essentially just a realignment. Item 181 is a budget ordinance amendment recognizing $753,843 from the State Department of Health and Human Services, Divisions of Women, Health and Children, essentially for our vaccination planning efforts and implementation. Item 184 is a new Durham County youth home. We're approving that plat and recombining 2 existing parcels into 1 parcel. Item 185 is a proposed relocation of an abandoned Wiley Jacobs May Family Cemetery. Item 186 is a capital project budget amendment for the 300 block of East Main Street, allocating essentially $2,959,120 and reducing the downtown parking deck project by the same amount and clarifying the source of funding for the $8,367,124 of the 300 block of East Main Street redevelopment project. Item 188 is our February property tax relief and refund report. Item 190 is a budget ordinance amendment appropriating $376,350 set-aside funding to continued home delivered meals for our food insecure families during the COVID-19 crisis and to approve the contract extension for the Food Insight Group. Item 198 is the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee appointments. Item 210, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council appointment. Madam Chairman, that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. If there are no other comments, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. The consent agenda has been, the motion has been, it's been a motion by Commissioner Alam, seconded by Commissioner Burns to approve the consent agenda. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Alam.
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacob.
Aye.
And Chair Howerton.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved 5-0. Commissioners, our next item is a public hearing. Commissioners, we have one public hearing before us this evening, and this public hearing is regarding the not to exceed $226 million limited obligation bonds, series 2021A and 2021B. And I'll ask Susan Bizard, our Chief Financial Officer, to present this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Let's see. Sorry about that. Yes, this is the public hearing for the issuance of the $225 million limited obligation bonds that is scheduled to be issued in April. About $113 million of that is for schools, and the rest is for county projects. And naturally, because this is a virtual meeting, the public hearing will need to stay open 24 hours from now. So that's about 7:21 right now. And because we've got time, we've got another regular session before we have to issue. We'll be asking for approval of the resolution at your regular session April 12th. We won't need a special session like we have in the past.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, Commissioners, are there any additional questions that you may have? Commissioner Jacobs.
I don't have a question, thank you. I just, Susan, if you don't mind, I know it's in our information, but just for the benefit of the public, it's actually in the language for the public hearing. Do you mind just listing, because there's a little more detail in that document, some of the projects that the bond is for just for the community to know, if you don't mind.
Okay. Actually, you froze on my computer, so could you please clarify? I'm sure I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, just in the document. I mean, we have that in front of us, but if you don't mind, for the public's benefit, if you could just list some of the projects that are going to be covered by the bond, that's in the actual language for the hearing. Thank you.
Yes. So for the schools, it's the new Northern High School, and then there's a variety of other projects for schools that are improvements of existing schools. I think there's a new elementary school proposed in this. Also, there's the sheriff firing range, improvements to that, a new youth home, which has been in the works for a couple of years now. So that's getting kicked off. And let me see. I'll make sure I got everything. Yes. New youth home. Oh, and the general services convenience site in the northern end of the county. Talking to Mo, we were leasing 2 separate sites, and so now we're going to own the site, and it'll be much more convenient and more up to date and safe for our community in the northern part of the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions?
And just to clarify, I meant to make sure you're aware. So $75 million of the 225 is a refinancing because the interest rates are so low, and then the 150 is new money.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I will now open the public hearing and have the county clerk acknowledge any callers on the line or read any comments.
Chair Howerton, County Commissioners, we did not receive any emails, and we do not have any callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. I would like, so now close the public hearing.
No, ma'am.
I leave it open.
That's right.
Okay.
For 24 hours, and so Monica will close it at about 7:24 tomorrow.
Okay.
And then we'll come back on your regular session on the 12th for final.
On the 12th. Okay. So this will. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the next item is other business 21-0195 Durham County Public Health Focus Update on COVID-19 crisis. The board is requested to public health focus update from our illustrious county staff on COVID-19 response and efforts. And this discussion will be held by our Public Health Director, Rod Jenkins. And we are always very, very pleased to have Mr. Jenkins before us with and letting us know about all the incredible hard work he and his staff are doing. So I turn it over to you, Rod.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good evening to my Board of County Commissioners, my County Manager, my great colleague, Attorney Darby. Thank you for being here this evening, and to General Managers, County Management staff. I bring you great news, but I also come to you as a very grateful Public Health Director. So proud of our staff. They have been working extremely long hours, but we have been out in the community this past weekend, as you may have seen on the news. We've been doing some great work, and I'm very proud of the work that they've been doing. We did have an opportunity to have a confluence of 8 churches at a vaccination event up 55 at Peace Memorial Baptist Church, where we vaccinated close to 500 people, to include members of the Latinx population and also the African American population. Not to be outdone, at Covenant United Methodist Church with the Old North State Medical Society, there was another vaccination event going on at the same time. And we also was able to head to Durham Rescue Mission to begin our vaccination efforts for our homeless population. So there's a lot to be proud of. The work is long and tiring, but we feel as if we're making a difference, and we certainly appreciate your support. Your report for this evening, just want to say to the Durham community at large that we are still doing extremely well, but it's still important to practice 3 Ws. Particularly, I want to give emphasis on wearing your mask. I know spring is in the air. You're starting to see a little pollen around, and seeing some shorts and tank tops and everything, but that does not mean that COVID is gone. We need to continue to practice the 3 Ws, particularly wearing a mask. That is something that Durham has been very successful with in terms of mask wearing. And we just want you to know that we need for you to continue to do that. I've talked to several epidemiologists at Duke, and they just said, in your messaging, Mr. Jenkins, could you please stress wearing your mask? We did have a week which we had a spike, and no need to go into great detail because those of us around the squares know exactly what's going on. But as I said to the media, that I knew that was going to be short-lived, and we are definitely starting to see the trends go down right now. So I'm proud. Total active cases as of this moment, 841. We have 22,277 inactive cases, meaning that many people have beat COVID throughout the pandemic. We did have a few more deaths, although I am happy to report that deaths are down. We stand at 215 total deaths since last year. Our hearts, minds, and medical patients continue to be with those families that lost loved ones to COVID-19. Total since the pandemic began, 23,338 total cases. Our 7-day moving average of positive cases was 65. That is an increase, well, a slight decrease because the average was 74 last week. And again, that was a result of the spike. And 2 weeks ago was at 43. So as mentioned, I am proud to say that, again, we did have a one-time spike, we hope, and we see lab confirmed cases both in the state of North Carolina and Durham continuing to decrease. That's a great. I come with you with some specific good news because you guys have tolerated me talking about race and ethnicity for many, many months. And I thank you because it's so important. That's what Durham Public Health does. We do everything under a racial equity lens because we want all demographics to know where they stand in order to keep themselves safe from COVID. Today, I'm happy to report that our Hispanic or Latinx population is proportionately represented at 13.79%. And again, we know that they represent 14% of Durham's population. Not to be outdone, the Black or African American community is proportionally represented as well at 36.09% of all of our new cases, though they represent 37% of Durham's residents. And our white population continues to be underrepresented at 40.84%, though they represent 54%. I'm going to give Durham a round of applause myself because I think that's the first time in a long time everyone has been below their percentage. So we're certainly happy about that. We know that the vaccine and practicing the safety mitigation strategies are making a difference. We continue to look at where the sources of cases are coming from. That's universities, unemployed individuals in the professional sector. And then, of course, we are also keeping a close eye on our percent of positive labs reported electronically. Although we did have a spike, we still remain under 5%. And our positivity rate last week was 4.4%. Duke's model had us growing at 1.5%, so it's still very, very low. It's slightly up from 2 weeks ago where it was 3.2%. So again, we're still trending in the right direction, and that trend is going down. Continue to watch out for COVID and its impact on school-age children. Those individuals are 18 years of age and younger. Right now, we've only had about 102 total cases, representing 12.54%. But rest assured, we have set up weekly conference calls with Durham Public Schools, the first of which was at 2 o'clock today. We want to make sure that we keep a close eye on their activity. It's the same thing we've done with North Carolina Central University and Duke University as well. We keep a close eye on the North Carolina School of Science and Math. So we're off to a good start. The county alert system, again, some more good news. For the longest time, we've not been red, but we've been orange, and now we're yellow. So I'm just happy. That's good. That's good. So again, we want to make sure that we promote the good and just let you know, yellow still means that we still have some significant community spread, but it's certainly not as bad as it has been. With all that being said, let's get to what you really want to hear about, and of course, that's vaccines. Vaccines continue to go extremely well. Durham is one of 8 counties in the state of North Carolina that is fully vaccinated, well over 45,000 individuals. And certainly proud of the work. We know that 25% of Durham residents have also been partially vaccinated. 16% of our total residents have been fully vaccinated. We continue to march forward with our vaccination groups. We are now vaccinating groups 1 through 4. And total vaccinations for Durham residents since about March 15th has been 119,280 individuals who have received some type of vaccination. So again, we are proud to report that Durham now has the ability to vaccinate with 3 vaccines to include Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. It has been reported, commissioners, that within the next 2 weeks, we should see a heavy influx of the Johnson & Johnson product. While there are no guarantees, they did say that we have been assured that we should receive a lot more. And after the 2-week period, we should receive anywhere from 180,000 to be distributed throughout the state of North Carolina thereafter. So that's certainly good news on the vaccination. Additionally, we continue to see great strides in our partnerships. And of course, North Carolina Central continues to be a great partner. They're going very strong. We've been able to provide a lot of vaccine to them. But Durham County residents, by and large, have been vaccinated at no less than 332 different vaccination provider sites across the state of North Carolina. As I've said to you so many different times before, this is a vaccine without borders. People are definitely shopping around to make sure that they are able to get in where they fit in as quick as possible. And to be quite frank, I don't blame them. Population with the greatest number of vaccinations have not necessarily changed. The whites continue to have the strongest numbers at over 43,000. Black or African Americans for the entire Durham County, right at 18,629. And within Durham, Asian also kind of round up that top 3 at 4,092 individuals who've been vaccinated. Of the total Black African American population in Durham, 16% of residents have been partially vaccinated and or 11% have been fully vaccinated. So we continue to really keep a close eye on our demographics because we certainly want our vaccination rates to mirror the different demographic population percentages that we have here in Durham. So to kind of recap, 54% is what whites represent as far as Durham's population. By and large, overall, that represents 63% being vaccinated. That's a green arrow going up. Black or African American, overall, 37%, but overall total percentage of doses administered, it represents 25% of Durham's population. Hispanic, Latinx, 14% of Durham's population. Percent of doses administered to this population, 5%. So again, we still have a lot of work to do in the Black, African American, or the Hispanic or Latinx, but we are committed to making sure that we take care of these populations. I'll just end and take some questions from you by just saying females continue to dominate the vaccination front. It's close to 2 to 1, but for the most part, the males are gaining ground. And I think lots of town halls and lots of education and lots of repeat messaging, positive messaging, are really swaying individuals about the vaccine. Because let's face it, we can't get back to normal without it. We can't go to travel. We can't hug and be with our loved ones without, being able to take care of ourselves. And, we got a lot of seniors who are coming in, and they're fully vaccinated. They're getting their second one. They're coming in and strutting out, and they're saying, "I'm going to tell the rest of my family to come on to Durham, get their vaccine." This time, I'd love to take some of your questions.
Thank you so much, Rod. Commissioners, questions for Rod? He did such a great job. I don't know if we have any questions. So, I think it's Commissioner Alum and then Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Chair Howerton. Thank you so much, Director Jenkins. As always, your presentations and updates are always on point. And as Commissioner Howerton said, we don't usually have that many questions for you. And I don't have a question for you. I just wanted to add on. This is like a little bit another fun aspect of getting vaccinated. For anyone who has gotten even just one vaccine, Krispy Kreme is now, if you take your vaccination card, they will give you a donut. I went before this meeting and got my free donut. And if you're getting Pfizer or Moderna, you only need one of the shots to show them the card. So another reason, besides being healthy, to get vaccinated.
Thank you for bringing that up, because as soon as I hit home today, that's the first thing my son says. Like, "Dad, we got to go to Krispy Kreme. You already got your vaccine, so you can get 2 donuts." But thank you for reminding me of that. That's good. That's definitely an incentive.
Commissioner Burns.
It's quick, that point of levity as we all look at our clock to see what time Krispy Kreme closes or not closes. I would just want to throw out, I remember, I think a couple of meetings ago, you told us we had about, one, thank you for everything. Thank you for all you do. That parody, the fact that our folks were featured in a national publication, I know it is because you and your staff have been doing the work. They highlighted North Carolina saying, well, it's one of those things, North Carolina was really proud to say, "Oh, we keep demographic data on all of our vaccines." It was a good idea to that first week, and then we didn't really see a lot of parity, right? And so then everybody was like, okay, well, who actually is doing it right? And then of course, as always, it's Durham. So thank you for that, because you're not seeing that parity everywhere else. But my question is, I know we're getting a lot of questions about sites. The last time we talked, I think you said there were 53 or 58 individual sites in Durham. And then you also have these pop-up one-day sites. I know for you, since some of them are ran by the state, like that mega site that's in Greensboro, we have, I think FEMA's would work to run that one. Is there any way, I guess the best way for me to ask is there any way that we can start to aggregate some of it? Not that we necessarily need to, because y'all are doing a great job, but like somebody had a pop-up one at a pharmacy the other day, and it might not be one that we have, like I said. So what are some thoughts around that? Because I know all the commissioners, and they've all done a great job of this, all 5 of us. We get a lot of questions about mass vaccination sites, but I'm like, if we have 60 individual sites going in a county as small as ours, I at least want people to know these are what's your options. So any thoughts around that? And then the second part of that question is, at this time, just off the top of your head, do you know how many active sites we have going there?
To answer your question, great question, Commissioner Burns, and thank you for always the insightful and the challenging question. I will say this, it is 53, and as you mentioned, I heard Commissioner Howerton loud and clear at the last meeting. She said, I present you all with a lot of great information, but the community needs to know. So I've done several interviews, CBS 17, ABC 11, just to make sure that they have factual information directly from me. And, it always comes up about the mass vaccination site, and we love our state partners. They help us out tremendously. But again, when you got 100 counties and 100 different entities wanting different things, I get it. But nevertheless, as county manager can attest, everything starts at the local level and ends at the local. So what we do is we feel great pride in being able to say to our emergency management officials, like when we report out at 5 o'clock, we say, oh, we've done 500. That's on a daily basis. And we're now at the point where we can do 500 at the Health and Human Services building without even breaking. Nevertheless, our partners at Duke, they have begun to stand up more of a drive-through site. They have tested it out, and that seemed to be going well. I am of the opinion that once the Johnson & Johnson is more robust in supply, that's going to give us the opportunity to do a lot more. I'm also encouraged by the state when they say, hey, pretty soon it's going to be a lot of vaccine. And I have no other choice but to take them at their word. So what that translates to, in my opinion, yes, huge throughput sites are important, but at the same time, when weather conditions come and there's different things going on, there's value in having, stationary sites because we don't miss a beat. So for the most part, the second part of your question, with Staff Development Center being able to do 400 per day, Southern High School being able to do 500 a day, with us at the Health and Human Services building being able to do 550 to 700 a day, that's well over 1,000 to 1,300 daily. So with that being said, again, I am confident that when vaccines become more robust, we've not finished or we've not stopped petitioning the state. We're just going to be able to, we're just going to hold them to what they say. And what they said is that, once vaccines become a lot more readily available, then they're revisited. Not to say that they've not been giving us a lot of vaccine. I promise Commissioner Howerton, this will be the last thing I said and I'll be done.
You're fine.
They have been doing, and they've been doing an excellent job of heeding to our petition. We have been sending event requests for more vaccine. We've been raising our hands saying, if you reallocate vaccines, please send it our way. Case in point, this week alone, our baseline allocation is 1,107. We got event doses we got equity doses in the amount of 500. And then for the final allocation, they were able to give us 1,000 more. So they now are able to see, hey, Durham is going to do exactly what they said they're going to do. I mean, I can't be prouder of my staff, because when the faith leaders came and they said, we want to do something, and they didn't want to hear any more lip service, they wanted to have something done, and we were able to stand up and deliver. So I just feel as if within the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a market level of vaccine. And when that does happen, that means that those 53 sites are able to, we can use that hub and spoke approach. We get the vaccine, we distribute. And that's pretty much what we've been doing. Be it Southern, be it Gurley's, be it Russell's Pharmacy, Triangle Pharmacy. I mean, these are just some of the people that I know off the top of my head. There got to be at least 13 sites that are active. And so proud, so very proud of North Carolina Central. They're doing a phenomenal job. So, I'm done with that here. I'm done.
No, and I just want to say to him, I'm saying thank you. The only reason why I asked that for everybody in public health, it is not a criticism. I asked him these questions because I want him to be able to say them. That way, I can share this link. I can share the data. Like we do that ourselves. I can say the other commissioners do it, but it's always good to hear him say it, because to have 50 some sites in a county this size and not to ask for a mega site, but not know that we have 50 over here. I just want people to know we have 50 plus. And I'll stop there, but thank you. That was really what it was about, Rod.
Thank you, Rod. I think Commissioner Jacobs, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just want to echo your now over a year positive outlook and enthusiasm, Rod. Thank you. You really have helped inspire our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a question. When you're referring to the percentage of vaccination rate per population, are you referring to overall population or percentage of people who are eligible, like 18 and older?
Overall eligible population. And I apologize, I should have been a little bit more clear. When I request information from my epidemiologist, it's a breakdown of two things. I want all of the state of North Carolina, how anybody who's gone anywhere who are Durham residents are able to get vaccinated. And then I also want vaccinations that are strictly from the Durham County Department of Public Health. And to be honest with you, Madam Vice Chair, both data sets are phenomenal. We're doing extremely well. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but that improvement is going to come with more vaccines.
Okay, so you are referring to this specific age group, not like, okay, that's helpful.
Yes.
And I just kind of wanted to get a sense from you how things are going with Durham Public Schools and, any additional support that you're seeing that they need with their surveillance or, contact tracing, or just now that they're doing in person. I was wondering about that, and also what you're seeing with the interest in Group 4, because that's like a lot of categories, and just anecdotally, are there big wait lists for that? Just what you're seeing for that. And then the third thing was just I had read some things recently about, I guess there was a survey that La Semilla did where people in the Latinx community still didn't seem to know, have the information they needed. And I think I'm really proud of the approach that we're doing in Durham and that you're doing, which is partnering with the trusted community organizations, whether it's in the Black community or in the Latinx community. But just, so those are just three quick things I wanted to get a sense from you on.
Sure. I'll take it in reverse, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you so much for those questions. I would say that what we've tried to do, and what we still have a lot of work to do, is our communication with Latinx. We've relied on Latin 19, we've relied on La Semilla, we've relied on El Centro Hispano to be able to really help us to communicate effectively. What I found is that with our event on Saturday, again, that was a confluence of not only Black churches, but Latinx churches. And man, I mean, the Latinx population came out in numbers. And I was so proud because that's a population I really want to get. But again, giving vaccine to Dr. Viviana Martinez Bianchi and pretty much saying, hey, just have an all Latin affair, and that's been effective. But again, we know that churches, well, I now know from this past weekend, churches are the way to go with that particular population because they feel most at home. They feel most comfortable. It was just so delightful to see them come in, feel comfortable, and get their vaccine. Second question. In terms of DPS, I will say that I was on the 2:00 call today, first of many, and I feel as if they have a great plan in place. All school health nurses, or majority of school health nurses, are health department employees, so they've been vaccinated. They feel comfortable. So we have surveillance leads that are lending themselves to Tricia Howard, who is the head nurse, medical professional for DPS. We had the executive leadership staff on that call, and they have a great plan in place. The main things that they wanted from us, Madam Vice Chair and others, was some takeaways, like what was your experience with North Carolina Central, Duke, North Carolina School of Science and Math? How are you able to help them to contain clusters and widespread outbreaks? And we just share. But the main thing that we ask of them is communication. Always let us know what's going on. Let's share information. You know, there may be some things that we're privy to early, and then we can kind of head you off and let you know what's coming. So that, you know, I think we're going to be in a good place with that. And I think I forgot the first question.
It was about Group 4. Just
Group 4, of course.
Okay.
Group 4 is huge. We have seen our wait list, you know, to be very, very, very open, honest, and transparent. Every time there's a pivot to another group, we have huge swells in our wait. But Group 4 has been huge. Big thank you to Monica for announcement number 1, and it was purposeful. I mean, we want folks to know that we want to get to you, but please know that Group 4 is large. It's larger than Group 3, which was, you know, our educators, and you know, so for the most part, we're doing a very good job. At the same time, it's also a sifting of, you know, individuals, because they'll sign up, you know, hour 2, minute 4 of the announcement that they can sign up, and then of course they're signing up 5 or 6 different places. So then when we send out the notification like, hey, you know, call us back, we want to get you scheduled, most of the people already had vaccine. So what we're finding is that some schedulings have been soft. We've been, you know, kind of facing some no-shows or whatever. But again, that's the game that every health department is playing. Also Duke is playing, because people are able to go wherever is going to call them first. But rest assured, you know, again, we have a good apparatus in place, and I feel as if we're going to be successful. I mean, most people want to know, you know, again, you know, how long is it going to be to get to Group 5? I do feel that it's going to be a while, but nevertheless, we'll get there.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you so much, Rod. You know, that I've had a couple of my friends say that they drove to Charlotte to get their vaccine. So they're going wherever they need to go to get it, as long as they get it. That's the main thing. And the other thing that I want to say, I talked to a couple of the teachers about the children wearing masks, and they said that the kids have no problem wearing the mask. They think it's really funny. It's just the adults that don't want to wear masks.
I think the most delightful thing that I heard is that the kids who were under the age of 5 were wearing their mask properly.
Yeah.
And consistent. That did my heart good.
So
and your friends that went to Charlotte, they just wanted to go shopping.
They just wanted to go shopping. Well, one question though. So we know that you and your staff are doing a great job taking care of the community. I want to know, are you taking care of yourself?
We're doing the very best that we can. I will say this, you know, logging thousands upon thousands of hours in support of the community has been taxing. One of the things that I do as a leader is make sure that my other leaders are well taken care of. I just say to them like, hey, are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking at least one day to telework, you know, to be able to be at home and hopefully not have kids all around or whatever, and be able to just focus? Do you need some time off? Do you need to go to the doctor, whatever have you? I just don't want them to forsake their health in support of what we're doing. For me, my philosophy is rest will come. Rest. But nevertheless, they are taking care of themselves. But you know, if they are, you know, we got this coming a little bit later on in the agenda, but if they are taken care of by their commission, trust me, they'll find the energy to keep on going. And I'm gonna leave it just like that.
I think we got you. All right. Thank you so much, Rod. We'll get to that conversation shortly. But thank you so much. And we will move on to the next item. So the next item, Commissioners, is 210090, presentation of the fiscal year 2020 2020 Annual Financial Audit and Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFA, and the FY 2020 Annual Single Audit and Compliance Report. The board is requested to receive a review of the 2020 Annual Financial Audit and CAFA and the FY 2020 Annual Single Audit and Compliance Report. And I believe Susan is our financial, there she is right there.
Yes.
On the screen with this item as well.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to introduce to you Scott Duda. He's the partner at Cherry Becker, who is the external audit firm, and he'll be providing the presentation to you. I think Monica has it on PowerPoint. If you want to, but Scott, are you there?
I am. Thanks, Susan. Good evening, Board of County Commissioners. Appreciate your time tonight. There we go. There's the presentation. Joining me today on the call is Mike Carey. He's the senior manager on the engagement. And throughout the presentation, either of us are happy to answer any questions y'all may have. Mr. Jenkins, I'm happy to yield some of my time for this presentation to you and the questions that you got. I think we're all looking for positive COVID news, and you were providing some of it. So I can certainly understand the questions and the interest. We'll go ahead and move into the agenda. There we go. So what I want to speak with you today about is, or this evening, I'll give you an overview of our audit process, talk a little bit about our audit areas of focus and how we approached the engagement. And then we'll talk about the results, and you all should have received the CAFR, which is the significant package, several hundred pages of financial information. I think we've talked in the past, and if you're going to look at only 10 or 15 pages in that document, I would look at that management discussion and analysis that is at the front of that document. It provides a very good high-level summary of the audit and the results. You should have also received a package of the compliance supplement or the compliance report, and we'll talk about that, and then we will also talk about required communications that we will relay to you. So if we can move forward, there we go. In terms of the audit, we were engaged to complete the June 30, 2020 audit engagement. You see here the various standards that audit was conducted under. One thing to note, and you all are aware of this, any external audit of any kind or internal audit for that matter does not relieve management from your responsibilities for governance. What we have done is we are responsible for forming an opinion, and you'll see a number of opinions throughout those documents that I referenced earlier. And so financial statement opinion, the compliance opinions, our responsibility is to form and express that opinion. And it's based on materiality, sampling sizes, statistical samples. So it is designed to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. If we can move to the next slide. So our audit areas of focus. I've mentioned to this board in prior years our focus on management judgments and accounting estimates. That's where their true bias or not necessarily overt bias could come into play. And so we evaluate all of those management judgments and accounting estimates and look for those types of biases. We also, significant audit areas included your cash and investments, your receivables and revenue, capital assets, accounts payable and expenses, debt and the compliance, covenant compliance, other long-term liabilities like your pension and OPEB obligations, and then the single audit component, which is all of your federal and state grant compliance requirements. And what you see here listed on this slide are the 5 major programs for this fiscal year. And so based on dollar amount, based on when we last selected them for testing, and then based on the entire population, their percentage to the entire population, these will change from year to year. Obviously, DSS cross-cutting and Medicaid are going to be 2 that for you all, we're going to test every year just based on the dollars associated with those. But then the others are going to change from year to year. But you see here the ones that were selected for the 2020 audit. We can move forward. So the results on the financial statement. So I mentioned for the financial statement audit itself, we have both a financial statement opinion and a yellow book opinion, which is really your internal control opinion. And in both of those opinions were unmodified. That's what is oftentimes called a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can provide. There were no internal control findings noted and no statutory non-compliance. The results of OMB uniform guidance. So this is the internal control surrounding your federal grant programs. Now here we still had an unmodified opinion, but we did have internal control findings, and you see those listed here. The two findings, the first is a repeat finding. It's related to eligibility. And then the second is a non-material non-compliance finding that was new in the current year related to eligibility. The compliance report itself, which is a separate, smaller document, has a significant narrative in it regarding findings, more detailed than what you see here, but goes into more detail about the sample sizes, the numbers of files that did have findings, and what caused those, specifics about what caused those. And so if you'd like more information on this, you can get that there. And then if we can move forward. So then your state single audit. So that prior slide was on the federal grant program, those federal dollars. Then we've got a state opinion on our state single audit. And because the findings on that prior slide related to grants that had both federal and state expenditures in them, we have the same findings, internal control findings, on the state opinion that we did on the federal opinion. So those findings mirror themselves. We'll move to the next slide. So required communications. This is for every audit engagement under US GAAP. There are requirements for an external auditor to communicate to you all. And you see those listed here. We talked about management estimates, and so you see those estimates that are included in your financial statements. Some are fairly routine, and then others you may not have thought about as being an estimate. But they include the allowance for doubtful accounts, estimated useful lives on capital assets, the retirement plan benefits. You all use external actuaries to help you generate those. Same with the self-insurance liability, and then fair value of investments and derivatives. So all of those, there is some level of subjectivity to. And so we look at all of those from year to year. We look at the estimate itself. We look at how it was derived. And we also compare that to just operations of the county in general to make sure that there's no bias in that. There were also no adoption of new accounting principles in the current year, no material corrected or misstatements. There were no uncorrected misstatements. And so I mentioned earlier, our opinion is based on determining materiality, that the financial statements are materially correct. There is a level under materiality where we can pass on an adjustment. It doesn't necessarily have to be booked, and we can still give that clean opinion that I mentioned. But as part of that, we're going to pass on that journal entry. We're required to communicate that to you. There were none of those non-material, uncorrected misstatements. And then there were no other matters to bring to your attention. A couple of things, if we can move to the next slide. So you see my contact information here. I'm happy to take any questions that you all this evening, but then also at any point throughout any engagement, I am happy to have a conversation about where the engagement stands, where we are in planning, what the results of our interim testing have generated, talk about the wrap up of the engagement and the timelines. Any information that you all would like to have, I'm happy to provide. A couple of other things to note. the local government commission, the deadline to provide a normal June 30 financial statement to them is the end of October. And they extended that several times this year until about the end of February, I believe was the last one. So the deadline was extended. All of the deadlines associated with reporting to all of your grant agencies, those were all extended this year. You all had a clean opinion. The report went down to the local government commission and was reviewed and approved by them without any comments. And sometimes they'll have comments that require change in the current year before they'll approve it. And then sometimes they'll have what's called a white letter comment, which is a comment that doesn't need to be corrected in the current year, but is something they would like to see corrected in a future CAFR. And there were none of those either this year. So the product that you all provided us to review and then that went to the local government commission, you can have a great deal of comfort in that and rely on that. And then I know that you all received for your June 30, 2019 CAFR, you received the Gfoa Certificate of Achievement. And I know that the June 30, 2020 will be submitted for that same award for the current year. And that's probably in process. And normally you all will hear back from them sometime in the May-June timeframe. I do know that that's being delayed this year because of COVID and the number of reviewers they have and those types of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if that goes maybe further out into late summer or early. And with that, I'll take any questions you all have.
Thank you so much, Scott, for your report. Excellent report. Questions, commissioners? Comments? Commissioner Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Duda. Again, it's nice to see you and your excellent report. But really what I wanted to say was congratulations to our staff, our finance team, and really our staff across the whole entire organization for having the financial records and the practices and internal controls to, lead to such a clean audit. I wanted to be sure and say, I only have one question, and it's not necessarily for tonight, but in the future, sometime in the future, I would just be interested to know a little bit more about the corrective action plans to address the non-material, non-compliant. In particular, the one that seemed to be related to inadequate staff, or just it said there, this is on page 13 of your summary, and it just says that the fiscal year 20 budget had included funding for additional staff for quality assurance to help address the growth in Medicaid and the complexity of the cases. And so sometime in the future, I'd like to know how we're doing with filling those positions. And is there anything that the board can do to, make that happen more readily? There's some structure that needs to be put in place, or, examination of salaries or whatever.
Certainly. The one comment there, so as a part of every subsequent audit, we will go back and look at the findings associated with the prior audit to see whether they were addressed. That's a part of our risk assessment, and that influences our sample sizes in subsequent audits. So next year will be impacted by whether or not those corrective actions were implemented.
Thank you. I do remember you saying that previous years. Thanks for repeating that for me.
Anything from you, Mike?
No, I don't have anything at this time.
No. Okay. Other commissioners, Commissioner Burns?
Commissioner Carter said it. That was all. I was going to let everybody else question. I just want to second this sentiment. Just hats off to the staff. That's all I can say. That's who crunches the numbers, and to go through an internal audit, independent audit, we have state audit come out. Every county does not get a report like that. That is not wasted on me. And I'm thankful for the good work that you all do, because it makes us look good, it makes Durham look good, and it's the reason why people continue to want to work, live, and play here, and it's the reason why people want to continue to do business here. So thank you for this information, and just again, hats off.
Actually, I do have one comment.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thanks to Susan's group. The audit was performed, I'd say 99.5% remotely. There was only one required day that we were required to be on site due to IRS regulations for review.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You know, it's great when you know that you've got an excellent staff that that gets the work done, that from the manager to the finance staff. I mean, everybody just does the work and make sure that Durham looks good and is accountable. So, and we thank you for making sure that you keep us on our toes. Is there anything else, Commissioners? Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to briefly follow up on one of the comments that Commissioner Carter made, because we did, Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Howard and I also got to spend a little bit more time with this at the audit committee meeting, and we were able to talk a little bit more about what Commissioner Carter referenced, and it does relate to the hiring freeze, and specifically some DSS positions and some positions that our board did approve, but were put on pause because of COVID and things like that. So I think we will see some of those requests come back to us because things like quality assurance, you have to have the staff, no matter how hard people work. It's very challenging. I know, Scott, you've put it in perspective before, that the amount of paperwork and compliance that federal contracts, things that go through DSS is enormous, and you kind of get into a vicious cycle once you have found to have a deficiency. It's kind of like a never-ending cycle. I mean, you can explain that better than me, Scott, but I did want to put that into context. So thank you for raising that, Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, so,
and I don't know if you have further comments about that, Scott.
Yeah, it's a relatively new component of the compliance requirement, but now if we have findings in a program, when we are coming back and looking at the next year's sample sizes, we're required to raise those sample sizes. So then you think about, so we're going to raise that sample size, in a compliance environment where any error is a finding. We don't have the flexibility, I guess is the best word, of materiality that we talked about in the financial audit in the compliance requirement. Any error is a in that environment. So we're going to raise sample sizes, and then we're going to select more. It's more likely we're going to have a finding, and then we're going to have to raise sample sizes. We're just sort of at the beginning, first few years of this, and so I don't know where that ends. But it will not surprise me, and I know we're starting to see it already at some other entities, where it's a vicious cycle of we're going to select more, and then we're going to have more findings. Our sample sizes are going to need to increase, which means we're going to find more. So and it's not a reflection necessarily on your team. It's one error of any kind is a finding, and those files and compliance requirements are tens or hundreds of pages long. And so it could be that we found the needle in the haystack, but if we did, we've still got to report.
Well, hopefully that people wear their masks, get their shots, and we can be out of this pandemic, and we can begin to hire people again to take care of that way.
Absolutely.
And I would just like to add, if I could, that
Sure.
Durham County, the staff just rocked. We've been through 2 disasters, and to have such a clean financial audit with no findings, and everyone wants no findings in a single audit, which is very rare, but to come out with 2 disasters and some of the services having to be provided while they couldn't account for the services and then have to go back and manually input that data. Durham County has got great people, great dedicated staff.
Yes.
I made the comment to Susan last fall that her and her staff were dealing with 2 once-in-a-lifetime events in the same month or 2 last year. And so, with COVID and cyber. But, yeah, absolutely. It was, it's always a challenge, and a lot of effort goes into the CAFR. You see the hundreds of pages in front of you. This year was even more so, and we really appreciate the staff and all they did to make our job as easy as it could be.
Well, thank you again so much. Manager Davis?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say for the record, around December of last year, for critical positions we really needed to get filled, I went ahead and signed acceptance for those. Since we have gotten past the mid-year financial update and understood precisely where we are, those critical areas like social services and public health, I have signed exceptions almost weekly, positions that need to be filled. And so I'm quite confident that we will be back on track.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott and Mike. We appreciate you. If there are no other questions, do we need a motion on this one, or is this just information only? Susan?
This was just information only.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We have our next item is 210204. 2020-21 fiscal update. The board is requested to receive a financial update for 2021 operating budget. This is a continuation conversation from February 22nd. And also from our retreat, our budget retreat that we had in February. So I'll ask Claudia Hager, our general manager, to introduce other resources and persons to begin this conversation. There, you're already here. Okay.
Commissioners, I trust you're well. I am here to give an update on our fiscal activities. We'll spend most of our time on the federal dollars that were received from, that will be coming to us, which is good news, resultant from the COVID-19 at that time. Also, I will share some recommendation as it relates to managing COVID-19 and how we handle the pay for those frontline workers who are providing services and service delivery. We will also then, and Monica, if you can advance to the next slide. We will then have some comments from departments, and then we'll have board discussion. There are several colleagues that are on the meeting, including that will be resources for this discussion, including Keith Lane, our budget director, Susan Tezai, our CFO. Some names that are not listed may jump in, such as Deborah Craig Ray, who's given the board some updates on the American Rescue Plan Act. We also will have some comments from departments, including our public health director, our register of deeds, our emergency services director, as well as our sheriff. And so I'll get started and we'll walk through these slides. Okay, I can have the next one, please. As you've been hearing, and I know through the association, as well as information shared from from Deborah and others, the Rescue Plan Act has allocated dollars that are critical for the management of COVID-19. It establishes and funds the National Vaccine Plan, as you have seen. It boasts funding for COVID-19 testing. There's additional funding for state and local government with dollars directed specifically for county as well as other jurisdictions. An additional $1.5 billion that will aid public land counties. It would also set aside dollars for rent, utilities, and homeless prevention. There's also direct financial assistance for individuals, which has had much coverage, and we won't go into that. And it also gives expanded plans, paid leave for family, and medical leave, including tax credit. And we can go to the next slide. Durham County will receive $62.9 million. These dollars were determined by population. As you may recall, the CARES Act funding was allocated differently, and disproportionately, many jurisdictions did not receive funding that could have helped them at a different level. So they were sort of forced to use dollars from their local allocations, and there were some additional resources. The funds will come to us in two separate payments. The first payment will happen in approximately 60 days, with the second one 12 months later. We will have about 3.5 years to spend the money, and the start date for the use of these funds began March 22nd, and the end date is December 31st, 2024. And we can advance. Allowable use of funds are for public health emergency related issues to COVID. It also allows for dollars to help negate economic impacts, including assistance to households and small businesses. There's a provision that allows for government services to use it to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to the health emergency. It also has allocations. The dollars can be used for investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. There's also a provision that allows for premium pay for eligible workers who are working related to the pandemic. And there are some criteria around that. It can't exceed $13 per hour or $25,000 per worker. And we can go to the next. There, of course, are reporting requirements, and there will be detailed as well as periodic requirements. And of course, if you don't comply to the rules and the uniform guidelines on how the dollar should be expended, the jurisdiction or entity will be required to repay those funds. And these dollars will be reported in our annual CAPR, and it will have a single audit. It will be in that single audit process. Next slide. Well, those were the comments I had about the dollars from the American Rescue Act, and there is a lot of information that will be coming to us. So what I gave was very broad and high level. Jurisdictions are waiting for additional guidance, and those details will come to us in upcoming weeks and months. And so as we learn more, we of course will share that information with the board. The next, I'm going to transition to some of the comments about differential pay as it relates to our employees that are essential frontline workers. During the February 22nd meeting, we shared with the board some options for addressing the differential pay for individuals who are working in the COVID-19 environment and may be providing and are providing services. The way our structure works, they work only for the hours that they're paid for the hours they were actually working. So it's not something that everyone automatically gets. So for an example, it shows there are 1,800 employees, and the estimated cost for 6 months was $2.6 million. If you were to look at our payroll budget for the full year, it's about $140 million if we were just looking at personnel. So if everyone was getting it, it would be close to $14 million. So when you look at that, you can see that is not the case. It was just for those who worked for those specific hours. During the meeting in February, we shared some options based on board feedback. And we had 3 different scenarios for consideration, including reinstating differential pay at 10% because we did pause it in December, implementing differential pay at 5%, or implementing differential pay at 10% for certain classifications. And so if you go to the next slide, Monica, what's being presented is the one that the board vetted, and there was interest in us narrowing the focus. And the third option is what is being presented as the recommendation to implement the differential pay at 10% for certain classifications. And we are projecting that cost at $1.9 million. This is eligible for FEMA reimbursement, and it's only paid when people are working on site. And so as I shared with that example, with our payroll being, personnel costs close to $140 million, we are able to project this number based on actual patterns because individuals only receive it that are in the certain categories when they are on site. The various categories that we talked about at the last meeting, including essential health care employees, as well as essential non-health care employees. And for both of those lists are the same. And we can go to the next slide. What we're proposing is looking at this approach through June 30th, 2021. For 21-22, we're suggesting that we evaluate the approach for looking at differential pay or hazard pay in the budget development process so we can determine what's the right approach, whether it's through FEMA reimbursement, if it's a joint process. The American Rescue Plan Act funds, again, you saw that they did allow for these expenses and other grant funds because some departments do have received dollars that have covered that expense. We would look at that particular component of the budget as well as all of the other aspects of the COVID-19 related expenses during the budget development process. We are grateful that these dollars are available. As you may recall, during the budget work sessions, there was lots of emphasis on areas that we've used dollars to support us over the past year. These resources will help us, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars can help us continue efforts that we've done in food insecurity, housing security, help us with costs associated with increased levels of cleaning services that we've needed to do for our buildings, as well as other costs that are directly resultant from COVID.
Claudia.
Yes.
It is important to point out to the board that the dollars that are available through the FEMA reimbursement as it relates to the stimulus package included $50 billion that's going directly to FEMA to do reimbursement. So I wanted to highlight that, just to make certain that we were all clear that monies, in fact, had been allocated in that amount for states and local.
Thank you, Wendell, for bringing that point up. Monica, we can advance to the next. Well, at this juncture, we'll have some brief comments from the departments shared earlier, and we'll start with our public health director.
Thank you very much, Claudia. And to my commissioners again, I just say good evening. It's very rare that I get to speak again, but I'll be real brief, as Claudia said. Public health has been active since January 23rd, 2020. We tend to think about March of 2020, but public health, since we were alerted to the first traveler coming in, we've been at this work since January 2020. Thousands of hours have been spent just really doing this work, and we do it with pride. We know that this is the reason why we exist, and we wouldn't have it any other way. You know, we are grateful that the Durham community entrusts us keeping them safe. I would just say that, you know, going on record, public health has certainly not asked for hardly anything during this entire pandemic. I think Claudia would attest, if anything, public health has truly been a benefactor of this entire pandemic. And we share our resources widely, and you know, we'll continue to do it. But the main thing I just want to say is, again, we're grateful, you know, for you all and your understanding and everything you do. But you know, we know that we can't get back the hours that we've lost with loved ones and special events, and we're still in this mode because the work continues. But again, as public health employees working this pandemic, you know, we just want to express our gratitude. We know that you have tough decisions to make when it comes to taking care of the entire enterprise and in taking care of citizens and making sure that we can maintain clean audit. But for the most part, I would be remiss if I didn't stand up for my employees and say we have been forward-facing, on site, every day. We have not missed a beat. We have found that any additional incentive just definitely drives us a little bit more. We're professionals. We want to do this work. We're entrusted to do this work, but it's a little bit easier to do this work when you got a little bit more skin in the game. So again, we will continue to be grateful for your leadership. We'll continue to be grateful for all that you do for public health. We consider ourselves to be blessed to have commissioners such as yourself, but we thank you for taking this up and considering this on your agenda. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have some comments from Jim Groves. He's our Director of Emergency Service.
Thank you, Claudia. Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, General Managers, Department staff, and the public who may be viewing online. Again, my name is Jim Groves. I am your Office of Emergency Services Director, and wanted to share with you just a few things that our teams have been experiencing since COVID, and in some cases even before COVID. If you may recall, we got really busy the day after Christmas with the McDougal Terrace carbon monoxide crisis. We went directly into support of this cyber malware attack, and then we were directed once again to support and coordinate the COVID response and recovery. And we don't do that alone. Obviously, we have some great team members, great departments in Durham County. That's something I'm very proud to be a part of. The Emergency Operations Center has been activated for over 1 year. They are conducting daily calls, weekly tactical calls, situational updates, hosting meetings, and making sure that information and plans are being developed to do that. And many times they're brought into harm's way with the folks they may have to interface with coming into the office or working with other specific groups. We have had our emergency medical services providers on the road every single day, not missing a beat. These people have really stepped up and just shown the true culture that we have in emergency services, but also in Durham County. You know, in 11 months, they responded to over 5,500 COVID positive dispatches. And we've confirmed that over 840 of those were COVID positive cases. And with that, we've been fortunate that we've only had 11 providers become COVID positive. Thank goodness none of them were really significant. Only 2 required hospitalization, and everyone recovered within 2 weeks. But I want you to kind of think about if you've had to wear a mask in public or in a group for any amount of time, right? And definitely if it goes over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, it becomes very uncomfortable. Our providers are in these masks for almost 12 hours each shift. They're required to wear it when they're in the cab together. They're required to have full PPE, which includes gowns and other protective devices when they're doing aerosolization or anytime there might be contagious disease that they're working with. So their normal stress levels in dealing with the nature of our work has really been compounded by the additional PPE and the unknown that they basically go into when they are responding to a call, when they're trying to clean themselves in the ambulance after each and every call as COVID. That's an entire wipe down on the inside of the ambulance, and then making sure they're clean before they go home to their families. It's just been a pretty significant event on them. You know, our Fire Marshal and Business Services division have also stepped in, and they've handled logistical support and other financial support to kind of help the process going with our hotel contracts or feeding or providing PPE to the public and businesses and doing virtual inspections. So I want you to know from Jim's heart, I appreciate you taking this up. I appreciate your close consideration to this, and really appreciate any support that you can have for our folks. They're going to do the job no matter what. I'll be very frank with you, but it is a nice little addition to be able to take a little bit home and maybe enjoy life a little bit more. Thank you.
Next, thank you so much, Jim. Next, we'll hear from our Register of Deeds, Sharon Davis.
Good evening, commissioners, Mr. Manager, other staff. You know, in March of 2020, I'm going to be specific. On March 6th of 2020, we had our malware attack. Once we had that malware attack, the governor issued his Executive Order 120, which stated that the Register of Deeds under Section 2 of that act was one of the mandatory local government operations that was required to continue to exercise their statutory responsibility. So not only were we dealing with a malware attack, we were dealing with a reduced staff and doing our operations manually. We had transitioned over the years to a purely computerized operation. But because of the malware attack and the county was, rebuilding our computer systems at that time, we had to revert back to the old way. We had to go back to pulling books off of the shelf, pulling documents out of those books, making copies of those documents in order to provide services to the citizens of Durham County, which needed those documents in order to perform their businesses. So we're talking about, we were providing birth, death, and marriage certificates. We were also dealing with land records, and doing those duties manually because our system was down. And that was the beginning. And I can honestly say it was extremely stressful for my team and for me because we had the citizens of Durham County at the door wanting these documents, needing to record these documents, and we were doing everything manually because of the malware attack. It took us approximately a month to get back up on our regular system, but it has been difficult ever since then to get back to a position where we can perform all of our duties in the way that we are accustomed to. We have always prided ourselves as being a department that where customer service was our main thing. We like to think that we provide the best customer service of any department in the county. We believe it, and that's what we strive for each and every day. But when you have to adjust the way you work by reducing the hours of your staff, doing a lot of things manually, dealing with irate customers because they can't get and do what they want the way that they used to, it creates a lot of stress. And some days you're a little anxious when you come through the doors because you just don't know what you're going to be faced with. It has helped that we have screeners at the doors of admin too. But we have noticed that a lot of times these screeners are not very honest with the parties who are asking the question. Because when we get when they get upstairs and we start pulling documents, they have been out of state, they lived out of state, and we just don't know where they've traveled, but yet we still have to provide the best customer service that we can for all of these people. And again, all of the duties that we perform are all statutory. We are all required to perform these tasks. For instance, with birth, death, and marriage records, we are required to be able to issue those documents 10 days from when we receive them. With COVID, we noted that we've had some increase, not a lot of increase in death certificates, but once those come across our office from these other departments, we're required to have them ready within 10 days. And again, we're working with a reduced staff. We're working with basically two teams, an A and a B team, because we needed to keep our staff separated because we didn't want to, if someone got infected, we still wanted to be able to perform our duty. So we got A and B staff. We're working on reduced staff, but still providing our statutory duty. Our office was never meant to be a remote office. We're hands-on. Again, we have to deal with the books that we have or be able to pull it up on the computers. And so working remotely was never something that we can do completely. We can do some jobs remotely, but we still have to come in. We have to come in, collect the money, get it up to finance within the required times, because that's just what our statutes say we have to do. The real estate market in Durham County has not slowed down in the last year. We are still recording a lot of documents, and again, we're required by statute to process those documents within 30 days and get them back to the customers. But we'd like to provide those documents back to our customers within a 2-week period. That's our goal, and we really strive to make that and do what we have to do. I think the biggest thing about the pandemic and having people come into the office and having to take care of them is that we leave our families each and every day, and we come into the office to take care and to perform those duties that we are required by statute. And we don't know what we're going to be exposed to when we are speaking or helping that person across the counter. And we really hope that we don't have to take anything back home to our family, because you all know family is important to each and every one of us. I could go on and on about our statutory duties and those things that we need to do. It's not what we need to do, it's those things that we're required to do. But I think I can speak for my staff. I think they would truly appreciate knowing that our county, that our commissioners care about them by providing them with this additional, maybe 10% or whatever increase for hazard pay. I think that there have been times where the morale has been low because we were basically one of 3 departments in admin too. The others all have been able to work from home, but we had to come in. I think they would appreciate knowing that people really care about them and their health and their safety. And if you have to come in to perform these statutory duties, then maybe if we gave them this extra money, they would feel like, yes, the county really cares about them as a person. And so that's my spiel. I thank you for this time, being able to present this short list of things. When I asked my staff to give me a couple reasons why they thought hazard pay should be continued, I think we had close to 50 things that they gave us, but of course I had to pull those down to something that I could present to you tonight. But thank you for the time, and I really appreciate your hearing just what we've had to do in the last year and how we've dealt with being essential personnel required to be there by the governor's executive order. And thank you again for this time.
Thank you, Sharon. We will now have comments from our sheriff.
Good evening, everyone. With spring being in the air and baseball right around the corner, I am happy to back cleanup tonight for my colleague. This has truly been a trying year plus for all of us who serve and strive every day to serve our residents. Like public health, emergency management, register of deeds, the Durham County Sheriff's Office has been on the front line since January. You may recall that I initiated contact with Seattle, Washington, the Sheriff's Office in King County, the moment we learned of COVID. And from that day, I and my staff have been planning and working to combat COVID and staying abreast of the latest protocols, precautions as it relates to this pandemic. And we have not missed a day. As a matter of fact, Article 4 of the North Carolina Constitution says the courthouse shall remain open. It's by constitutional mandate that we come to work every single day so that the people can come to the courthouse and carry out their business. Likewise, I am the custodian for all of the men and women who are housed at the Durham County Detention Center, roughly some 356 or so as of today. We're thankful that that number is lower than it was this time 2 years ago, but nonetheless, every one of those individuals, mothers and fathers and sons and brothers, are in our care and custody, and the detention center staff has not missed a beat. Day in and day out, we have followed all of the protocols. We've worked closely with public health to make sure that not only do we keep ourselves safe and our families safe, but those who are in the care and the custody of the detention center, keep them safe. We've been doing this and we'll continue to do it, responding to calls for service in the public, backing up EMS, doing wellness checks, delivering meals. And the one thing that I think everyone on this call is quite aware of, that during this pandemic, crime did not stop. Last year, we had unprecedented gun violence in the city and the county of Durham. Over 900 shootings, over 35 homicides. And unfortunately, we're on track the first 2 months of this year to surpass that. Working closely with my colleagues at Durham City Police, we're doing everything we can do to curb this trend in the midst of this pandemic. And we will continue to do so. I am constantly encouraged by the strength and the courage of every employee at the Durham County Sheriff's Office. Do they get tired? Yes. Do they get frustrated? Yes. Do they get sad and worn down? Yes. But yet they still come to work day in and day out. And tragically, we've lost 3 members of the Durham County Sheriff's Office family to this pandemic. So we have felt the grief firsthand here inside the Sheriff's Office, and many of us in our family circles as well. But yet we still come to work. So having you take up this differential pay tonight is a significant signal to all of our employees that you do care and that you are aware of the sacrifices that they put in and day out. And for that, I thank you. I could go on, but I think you know that what we do at the Durham County Sheriff's Office allows everyone else on this call, every other small business, company, factory, restaurant in Durham do what they do. We are public safety. We are the front line, and our duty is to serve and protect and do all that we can to keep our community safe. And we do that and have done that in the midst of this pandemic, and we will continue to do it. So I thank you this evening for your time. I thank you for the consideration and deliberation of this item. And I'll stand by for any questions should there be any. Thank you.
Thank you. So Claudia, are we ready for commissioners' questions? Or are you?
No, that was the last slide and comments. So we will now entertain questions that the board may have.
Okay, Commissioner Burns.
I just want to say, just kudos to your team, Claudia, the county manager, Susan, everybody, because we do have to go ahead and tackle that immediately. So I'm happy that you all are taking the time to do a deep dive. Can you hear me?
Well, yes.
Okay, no, it said it was unstable, and I said, oh no, don't go unstable on the internet connection. But okay. What I was going to say is, so thank you for doing that, because there is a lot of funding coming down. And I know that each time something is opened up, you all have jumped on it. So thank you for that kind of around the clock effort. Thank you to public health for the vaccinations. Thank you to EMS for picking us up and getting us to the hospitals, doing this really over time. Thank you to the Register of Deeds for making sure that people got in and out of homes, that we could file the paperwork that we needed to. And to the Sheriff's Office for continuing to be a champion for public safety. Community safe. I wish I had some questions, but as somebody who is still working, you all, I feel like Seattle Seahawk, Marshawn Lynch, you all know why I'm here. So I'm going to allow the other commissioners to ask questions, because the only thing I plan on doing is making a motion tonight. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. It's amazing when you hear in this format all the stuff, some of all the stuff that, and I know that's just a little bit of the stuff that you do and all that your staff does. So we just, what can you say? just how much you appreciate all that you do. So, other commissioners, any comments or questions? Commissioner Alam.
I want to also express my grateful for being the frontline workers, making sure that our safe, healthy, and course as impaired. And also, we talk about the hazard that exists of being in the front lines, being exposed to the pandemic, but also the stress that it brings on of being in these areas, of how it may affect you and how it may affect your families long term. So I'm really grateful for all of the work that you guys have done and have taken upon yourself during this period.
Thank you. Other commissioners, Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to echo what my fellow commissioners have said, and also to commend, all of the department heads that we heard from as well, because there are many, many things that you all have done to also keep your staff safe. The practices, the best practices that you all have implemented the entire time. And I was thinking too, when Sharon was speaking about early in the pandemic, one of the big, pressures from the real estate community as well, because people were trying to do their business, and the malware attack and the pandemic impacted a lot of people in many different ways. I just have a question. I know you sent me an email, Claudia. I didn't have time to read it, but where are we at right now with the current filing of the? I guess we've spent close to 3.9 million on the hazard pay from March 14th through, I think, early December. Have we gotten any feedback yet from FEMA on that?
We have not gotten feedback yet. We are expecting to get some feedback soon, but jurisdictions are having similar situations. Most focused first on the CARES funding and the reconciliations that were required for that. And because they knew the state auditors were coming, and they are here virtually with us right now a lot.
Okay.
So that was the first priority. And after we finished that, we did our first filing last month. And we will do another filing in a few weeks. And we vet our information a lot to make sure that we are compliant. We take pride in what we do, and as coming off of the heels of Scott Duda's conversation, even if it's not a material issue, you still want to have zero findings. And so with that, with money that's spent, you never want to be in a situation where you've turned it back in because it wasn't done correctly. So with the FEMA vetting, we're in process of doing that. We don't have sufficient staff ready to go really fast, and all of us have been chipping in. And y'all have heard the story, I chip in, others have chipped in, because we're trying to make sure, regardless of the scenario, and we feel like we're in a tsunami of workload right now, we still have to stick our land. And so with that, we just sort of staged it. But timing wise, we did submit our initial amount, and we will continue submitting those as those vettings. But
okay.
there is additional dollars also for those reimbursements.
Okay. So how much have we submitted so far? Is it, what period it is? What time period?
I know we submitted the dollars reimbursements for the EMS workers from the previous fiscal year. And I don't have that number directly with me, but it was, I won't guess. I'll follow up with her what that number was.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, but we did that one because from a scrutiny perspective, we could do that faster because we knew what we do is we go payroll by payroll to look at it and do some follow-up and vetting. And so when there are certain classifications like EMS workers, not the supervisor, but the workers, now the supervisor may have been performing some work that would have made them eligible. So we first went with the ones that we knew that would fit that criteria and wouldn't require the extra follow-up and check. And so now we're doing the other ones to do our due diligence. So, and Susan, we can follow up with that, or she may have it readily, but we can confirm it.
Unfortunately, I don't have the number readily available, but what I can tell you is that everything flows through the compliance manager as well as the consultant that we hired regarding the reporting. And because we want to make sure we've got the process clear and we're following the process correctly, the first report was not a huge dollar amount because we want to make sure we get the process first. And so when we get that feedback, then we'll know exactly what FEMA's expecting and exactly how we need to report.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that information. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Carter?
Thank you, Chair Howerton, for recognizing me. I want to start by saying I've never disagreed with this pay. And I want to also say thanks to Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Groves, Ms. Davis, Sheriff Burkhead for sort of painting a picture for us tonight to help put it into context, the intensity of the work that you all have been doing and are continuing to do. It's so clear to me the professionalism of our staff, the very deep work ethic that county government staff members have throughout the whole organization, not even just on the front lines. You've described this culture of giving of selves in the service to others, and that is what our county employees do. That's one reason I wanted to be a county commissioner, was to somehow be affiliated with the people that I respect and admire so much, like you all and like those who work for our school system, the public employees that make our local city and county run. I do have a question or two. I'm wondering about, and I've always wondered about this. When do you stop calling something hazard pay and instead call it incentive pay or appreciation or premium pay? I mean, I'm wondering if that is what will help determine when we stop the hazard pay, and is there a threshold beyond which we think the risk has been reduced so that the hazard is no longer significant as more people are vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. Just wondering about that, but that is connected to my other question, which is, I feel like one way of showing staff we care would have been at this point in the game to say, the greatest hazard may be behind us, and oh my God, thanks for all that you've done. We see now that our financial situation is more secure than we knew at this point last year, and so maybe we want to reinstate the raises or the cost of living adjustment that could then benefit everyone across the organization, and it could benefit people going into the future. That would have been a discussion analysis I would have liked for us to have had as a board. I feel like it's beyond that at this point, and this is where we are, and I'm prepared to vote to approve this. But in my opinion, we could have, maybe done more for more people that would have had greater long-term benefit. I don't know. I just wish we had maybe talked more about that. But if we could just get back to the hazard threshold and when we think, this will phase out, will there be a positivity rate in the community beyond which we'll base it on that, the community positivity rate or some other factor? Trying to get a handle on that.
Madam Chairman, I'm happy to respond to that question.
Please.
First of all, obviously vaccines are going in arms. kids are back in school. For the last 2 weeks, senior level staff, myself, and as recent as last week, department heads started to have conversations around reopening strategy. As we move further along that progression, what we are anticipating is coming before the board at our April work session, talk specifically about what that strategy is. I'll say to you the same thing that I have said, commissioners, to our general managers, to our department head, and that is effectively this. As we get closer to having our workforce fully vaccinated, as we get closer to obviously the community spread numbers going down and having a more substantial number of our citizens who will interface us in these public spaces vaccinated, we can then hopefully anticipate the hazard pay going away. On the second part of your question, obviously, we had to make some difficult decisions financially to make sure that we remain solvent and afloat in light of all of the things that were in the pipeline. Tonight, you essentially took an action to approve a substantial amount of debt, quite frankly, in lobs that will fund schools and a whole host of other projects. But we had to make some really tough decisions in order to get ourselves positioned to be able to continue along that path to make certain that those things happen. As I bring forward my recommended budget, I will be bringing forward a recommendation to include essentially something across the board for all of our employees in my recommended budget, because I think that perhaps you're right. All of our employees, in light of what they have gone through over the last year, certainly are in fact deserving. You know, we had key departments to come in tonight that were on the front lines for the most part. But as you have heard me say on numerous occasions when we have talked about this issue, we have wastewater treatment plant employees down on Highway 55 that are there around the clock. And pathogens of all sorts have come through that facility. We have figured out ways to put books in citizens' hands from our libraries, although the library doors were closed to the public. We have had employees redirect their responsibility and take on the work of feeding the hungry and placing themselves directly in harm's way outside their job duties and responsibility. And all of those employees need to be recognized and subsequently properly compensated. It's one thing to recognize people, but you know, at the end of the day, in the environment that we live in, a thank you doesn't put, you know, a loaf of bread on the table or a gallon of milk in the refrigerator, or take care of the responsibilities that all of our working families have the responsibility for. And so those issues that you raised, I think hazard pay tonight will address a portion of it, but I do think that going forth in our budget recommendation, I will be making a recommendation that we go a little bit further.
Just one other thing, Mr. Manager, if you could address, I hear there are two separate pots of money. The money that we can use for the hazard pay is money that we can get reimbursed, and to give employees having to do with their salary increases, that's money would come out of our budget. Is that?
Well, it depends.
Correct?
It depends on how it's structured. As I said before, there is $50 billion that has been allocated to FEMA for reimbursements in this hazard. And so for those things that are obviously compliant with that pot of money that we can utilize for the purposes of reimbursement, that's what we will do. If we have folks, quite frankly, who are outside or above and beyond that, then yes, we would be looking for general fund dollars to address those other gaps.
If there are no other questions,
I had one more
concerns?
comment. I just want to let Commissioner Carter know, I look forward to discussing with the board, hiring additional people and giving individual raises, especially since it was earlier pointed out that that was one of the issues that we had with our audit. And I think that everybody on this board, myself included, who's been very vocal about it, if you say that that is a conversation you wanted to have, there are 4 people who would be more than happy to have it for you. So I look forward to those emails and that communication. I would also like to point out that the county has not lifted its emergency declaration yet. So perhaps we could talk about when we're going to deal with hazard pay, when we ourselves have decided that we wanted to lift the declaration that we put out there. We as the board, because I wasn't on the board when it was put out there, but I still agree that it still needs to be there. Additionally, I want to thank the sheriff. If I'm not mistaken, you've already gotten about 100 people in the, you didn't say this, but I want the community here. You got about 120 of your detainees vaccinated. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Sheriff, for continuing to thinking about, some other folks who sometimes we don't think about that population. And I would just end on this. I think 3 more employees got COVID this week. So until we can decide that we don't want to have a declaration, until we can have some weeks where we don't have employees getting sick, I think we should continue to pay hazard pay. And I'm more than happy to have the honest, professional conversation with any county commissioner that wants to lift it. That being said, if there are no other comments, like Commissioner Howard said, I would like to make a motion to implement differential pay.
Okay, hang on.
I'm ready to go.
Hang on, Commissioner.
I want to do this in December. I'm ready to go.
Hang on.
I'm ready to go.
I'm with you, but let's go through the process.
We did raises for everybody else.
Yeah, let's just go through the process. So are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, then I will ask for a motion to approve and the recommended implement differential pay at 10% for certain job classification. So would you like to repeat the motion?
No, you don't repeat it, Commissioner Jake. Okay. I mean, Commissioner. Okay. I would like to make a motion to implement differential pay at 10% for certain job classifications at $1.9 million plus benefits, which is eligible for FEMA reimbursement. Do I have a second?
I second, Madam Chair.
So there's been a motion by Commissioner Burns and a second by Commissioner Alam to approve the differential pay at 10% for certain job classifications. Can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Alam?
Aye.
Commissioner Burns?
I don't know. Aye.
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs?
Aye.
And Chair Howerton?
Aye. So passes 5-0. And so thank you so much, all of you, and we absolutely appreciate you and all of your staff, and let them know we appreciate it. Thank you. Commissioner Jacobs, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, get clarification at our April work session. Claudia, will we be discussing and just having a general discussion about the ARA plan and the dollars?
So we can have a very broad discussion. Right now, it is the interpretation of most of it has not happened. If you may recall, with the CARES funding, the state facilitated those allocations. We get directions, and then they get tweaked a little bit more. So the initial set of guidelines have not come to states yet with the more fluid, with the more fleshed out information. And so we can still talk about it in April, but it will still be at a high level, but it will allow us to think about what does this mean as it relates to planning for the budget process. Because as you may recall at the retreat, there were several items that were big ticket ones that we were trying to figure out, well, how do we cover these things going forward? So we definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really important that our board has the opportunity related to what Commissioner Burns just said to have a high level discussion because this is a lot of money coming into the county, and it's the American Recovery Act, and it is for our community to help our community recover from the impact of COVID. And I just, and fortunately, we're going to have several years to spend the money, which means that we can be very careful and planful and deliberate about it. And I just think it's a very important opportunity, to be able to talk about
Commissioner Jacobs,
that at our upcoming meeting. Yes.
Mr. Jacobs, can we have that conversation at our agenda prep as to how that's going to be discussed at our work session? We can do that at that point. If that's okay with you, we can move on. Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is the appointment. Thank you so much, Claudia. I think that's all. And we have the board appointments, and I think Attorney Darby is going to do those for us.
Yes, Madam Commissioner. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners and Chairperson Howerton. Good evening. To the Alliance Board of Directors, you may select two. You have selected Gino Pazgani, also Pam Silberman. To the Durham County Women's Commission, you have selected Tiffany Reeves and Courtney Kelly. To the Airport Authority, you have elected Patrick Hanna and David Morgan. Those are the results of your board appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. Thank you, Attorney Darby. And congratulations to all of the board appointments. There's one other item, commissioners, that I suggested that we have a brief conversation about is the Wellness Task Force appointment. There's one appointment we have not been able to make so far, and that was a parent of a murdered child. And we've got a lot of people that have died, but they are not parents of murdered children. So we were making a suggestion that we change the language to it be an individual that has experienced 2 deaths in their family by violence.
Commissioner Howerton, I'm okay with that.
You okay with that? What about the rest of?
Can you just repeat it? I had a little difficulty hearing it, but can you just repeat it?
That would change the language to have it be an individual that has experienced at least 2 deaths in their family.
Due to gun violence.
Due to violence.
Due to gun violence, yes.
I don't have an issue with it. I don't know about the other commissioners. I know I've spoken with a few of you about it. It is a very difficult conversation to have, as we do board recruitment. And I've gotten, it's a hard conversation to start, and I've gotten a significant number of no's, and I think that's just going to be a hard one to fill. So I don't have a problem with moving it to someone who has had. I agree with that, Commissioner Howard. And I'll just.
It's a hard space for an individual to be in, and knowing that with all the emotion that they have attached around themselves to deal with being in a group for a long period of time. So, I've talked to some individuals as well, and for myself, I can imagine if it's not a long period of time since you've experienced that, it may be kind of difficult. So I think having someone that has experienced it, but it's not their child, it may be just a little bit of a different thing. Yes, Commissioner Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, I know you used in your language right now, I think you said 2 or you gave a number, but I'm personally fine with not even doing that and just being very general and saying anyone who has personally experienced the trauma of gun violence, and just being very general about it. I kind of feel uncomfortable even putting a number on it like that. So I'm fine with just leaving it more general even, but
And can we still keep family member on there though, Commissioner Jacob?
Yeah, that's fine.
I would.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just don't feel comfortable with saying the number because, I mean, one person is enough. So, in terms of the trauma, okay.
All right, then, and I'm sure our staff got the minutes from that, and so we'll go with that. All right, and what will happen is she will change the language on the posting and let it run until the last of March, and we'll make that appointment in April so that that committee can go ahead and start to do its work. Okay. All right. Is there anything else from any other commissioner? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Been moved by Commissioner Jacobs and second by, was that Commissioner Byrne? Commissioner Carter?
Commissioner Carter.
Okay. A roll call.
Long.
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs.
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye. 5-0, we are adjourned.